In a series devoted to parenting, it's probably appropriate for us to stop for a moment and ask what parenting is. I know that some common models of parenting will come immediately to mind. Parents are called to provide for their children, to instruct their children, to discipline their children. From the first baby blanket all the way to college, parents have to ask what their children need, sometimes what they want, whether they can meet those needs. And the model of instruction also is central. Parents teach everything from how to hold a fork to the habit of saying thank you to ways of understanding people and the larger world. Finally, even if it is not what most would look forward to, the majority of parents would name discipline as a central model for what they are doing. In fact, for some, that might top the list. So I wouldn't suggest to you that we should erase any of those ways of imagining what parenting involves, but I do want today to offer you another model that I believe could be a richer one. I think it might serve to expand our imagination about this work and perhaps unexpectedly to yield practical kinds of encouragement and direction for parents. I want to suggest to you that we can think of parent and child as involved in a process of apprenticeship. Now, apprenticeship, which of course still survives in some of the arts and some of the trades, was once a dominant form of education. The basic form, as you probably know, is a simple one. An apprentice works alongside a master, watching carefully and slowly moving into greater and greater participation in the work. So a masonry apprentice learns bricklaying by watching and then joining in the work of a master bricklayer. Apprentices to the great artists of the Renaissance did the same thing. In the art studio, an apprentice might be allowed first to clean brushes, then to mix paint, then to begin adding details to some of the paintings. Eventually, the apprentice would begin to be paid and to produce his own masterpieces. The master, close at hand, would oversee this process throughout. Too often, I think, parenting slides into imagining something in terms only of what parents are doing to their children. Parents can get pulled into something that might perhaps better be described as management of their children. So we get them ready for the day and we feed them, we bathe them, we pick them up, we bandage wounds, we try to follow all the advice. When they're newborns, we put them to sleep on their backs. When they attend school, we try to get them to do their homework. We try to praise more than we criticize. Ultimately, though, and sometimes it seems constantly, parents are doing things to and for our children. But this model has real weaknesses. It can create anxiety in children. It can erode the relationship between parent and child. And all this management, frankly, is exhausting, both for parents and for children. So the model of apprenticeship, I want to suggest to you, stands as an alternative, can offer a number of fruitful kinds of emphasis. The model of apprenticeship is more about parents simply being with their children doing life together. I believe that as apprenticeship becomes a guiding model, it actually leads to less vigilance and less alarm. It involves less planning and less organizing. It involves more presence, patience, playfulness, ultimately more calm. The calling of a mother or a father to walk with his or her children, sharing work, sharing play, sharing themselves, is a richer reality. And notice that the focus of the master in apprenticeship is not even on the apprentice in a direct way. Of course, the master will keep one eye toward the apprentice to see what it is that he or she does, what is done well, and possibly to offer a word of encouragement or correction. There's a fundamental way, though, in which the two are faced together toward the thing that they are doing together. And that may sound like a subtle difference, but there's something important there. In the model of apprenticeship, the child is not the product. To fill out the picture of apprenticeship, there are at least two other essential elements of this model that I have in mind. I think of the way that so many parents are so concerned to get it right at every stage of the parenting journey. And there's nothing wrong with a desire to do things well. But especially in an age of social media and all the accompanying comparison, this too can become suffocating. So I want to note that to talk of the work of apprenticing one's children does not necessarily mean that one's own mastery of everything is complete. In the apprenticeship of parenting, part of what a parent shares is her own ongoing learning process. A child who sees her parent admit this, a child who sees her parent apologize, even more sees her parent apologize to her, is being apprenticed in a powerful way. And it's also crucial to note that children are not simply apprenticed only to their parents. Matter of fact, children learn in a studio that is filled with artists. They learn in community. This is perhaps the single most important element when we think about raising faith-filled children. Parents can seek out communities who will contribute to their child's apprenticing, but they can't conjure those communities from nothing. Ideally, parents will be welcomed along with their children into communities that are already functioning in this way. There can be programs and various kinds of religious instruction that can assist in this matter, especially when we remember that the goal here is not simply conveying information. Initiatives like clubs and camps and classes are most valuable insofar as they set the stage for the real work of apprenticeship, a long, patient process by which more experienced people come alongside those less experienced and share with them the most valuable resource of all, which is themselves. They offer a context in that way to do the work of the body of Christ, worshiping, serving, celebrating, and mourning together. It's important also to keep in mind the crucial challenge that we see to apprenticeship parenting in our cultural context. In other settings, past and present, parents and children were literally able to work together and are, because the work of the parents is not by definition something separate from activities that their children are able to take part in. Perhaps the simplest example of this is a family farm. In that world, children as young as 4 or 5 are needed to work together with their parents. But we're in a different situation. What we call work, by which we usually mean paid work, now almost always involves traveling away from home and being gone, sometimes for 10 or 12 hours in a day. It's true that some parents are able to work at home, and that can provide some flexibility, but it can also highlight even more sharply the way that the work that adults generally do does not mix well with the care of children. So parents face a difficult set of choices, and especially in a sense, they face a choice between two things. They can join the world of work and be away from their children, or they can focus on caregiving. And in that work, sometimes find themselves isolated from other adults and other kinds of work beyond the supervision of their children. I don't mean to simply romanticize the past, but I think that living in the wake of some of those changes, parents do well to keep this challenge in mind. Parents can intentionally seek out stretches of time with their children in which they're not pursuing activities or entertainment, but are working together purposefully for some end. I've known parents, for example, who resisted either buying or repairing a dishwasher for just this reason, because the time spent washing and drying dishes is a perfect example of the sort of time in which the work of apprenticeship is given space to happen. Now, Christian parents may notice that this model of apprenticeship seems familiar. As a matter of fact, apprenticeship could be a way of describing discipleship. In Jesus, God became present for a powerful process of apprenticeship, first with the 12, and then with an expanding circle of followers. As Christian parents seek to imitate God, they can see their own commitment to this intensive process as a reflection of Jesus' own work among those that he loved. There remains a very important question to ask. If parents are like a master and children are like apprentices, then what is the skill that those apprentices are learning? It's not stonework or painting, of course. What is it that parents are modeling? We could answer the question, I think, in a couple of different ways. On the one hand, children are apprenticed to parents to learn a million things: how to talk, how to tie a shoe, how to drive a car. But on the other hand, underneath all those many things, there are much more profound things that are being modeled and learned. Even in the case of experienced parents, I want to say to you today that I think there can be profound value in stepping back and asking that question. What are the things at the center? What is it that we are teaching and apprenticing our children to most fundamentally? Such an important question might deserve some very focused consideration, even in the form of a retreat or time away for couples spent thinking and praying about that. Perhaps as a way to begin that conversation, I want to suggest just a couple of answers that one might give about the fundamental apprenticeship that is taking place. These are hoped-for skills that have, in fact, anchored parenting for me, even when I certainly have fallen short in accomplishing them in the way that I meant to. First, I think is the most important of all, even if it is not the first topic that is addressed in typical parenting books. We are teaching our children, we are apprenticing our children to joy. By joy, I don't particularly mean cheerfulness. I don't necessarily mean a good mood. And I definitely do not mean putting on blinders to avoid painful realities or to try to blunt negative emotions. What I mean is a deep conviction underlying all else that the world is good and beautiful, that our children are welcomed into it. So this would include a sense of wonder at this deeply good reality around us. I think it inevitably results in a kind of gratitude for the smallest things and also for the remarkable gift that is life itself. Second is a sense of purpose. Here I mean giving a child an opportunity to see herself in the world as an agent, as someone who is interacting with that world in meaningful ways. I think this is so easily seen in toddlers, for example, as they try to find ways to change and even control their own situation and the world around them. But the same could be said for teenagers. It's easy for parents of teenagers to become focused on setting limits, but parents can also look for ways to celebrate their child's growing abilities with them. Of course, for parents of faith, there's a sense in which the practice of that faith sits at the very center of it all. I think it's important to remember, though, that conscious faith rests on and incorporates things like joy and purpose and other habits as well. Wonder at the beauty of the world precedes an awareness of God's presence and produces things like trust, a deep sense of being beloved. A sense of purpose can become a vocation, a calling to live one's own individual life in whatever way to God's glory. A broad sense of connection to others, finds its center in connection to a commitment to the church. And that spills over in the habit of loving others, inviting others to the table as well. So here is the heart of apprenticeship parenting: to live life immersed in joy, purpose, compassion, and faith, and to share that life with our children.